Hey everyone, it's great to see you. And today I want to talk about Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. Developed by PopCap Games and published by Electronic Arts. I used to be a big PopCap Games person back in the day, you know, whether it was the original Plants vs. Zombies or Peggle, or PopCap had this game where you had like an aquarium and like little coins fell down. You had to click the coins to buy fish, and the fish would help you collect the coins, I think. Or Zuma's Revenge. You know, I was really big into their games back in the day when, you know, flash games and things of that nature were a little more popular, and I was on the computer playing them, and a kid without so much disposable income to purchase games for. Not that has to do with Battle for Neighborville. I bought this game on a deep sale, maybe like I got it for like $10 or so used, and picked it up because I heard, oh, it's a couch co-op game, and so I wanted to try playing this and beat it with my partner over a couple of weekends, and now wanted to just kind of talk about it, share my experiences with the game. So you know what's funny, the first thing that I saw when I got this in my hands and I bought it was, you know, look at this staining here. You see this like pink stain? The thing that I find so crazy about it is you would think, oh, well, that's on the case, right? Well, no, it's on the actual insert. And I'm flabbergasted sometime. Like, how do you accomplish that, folks? There's plastic protective layer over the art so that it doesn't happen, but more or less it seemed to have been the case. Inside, of course, we get the game, and then also we get a little insert for the Plants vs. Zombies digital graphic novel. I didn't check this out, but it seemed like it was free, and the code was just zombies. So that's cool. I guess if you're watching this and you want to go check it out even without owning the game, now you can. You have the instructions. The game was announced in, you know, mid 2019 and released in later 2019, and then support for it was kind of finished by the end of 2020. I don't know too much about the history and development of this game. There's not a lot of details out there to my understanding, but when it was released, it was positively received. It had an early access mode, which I always find to be a little interesting for people who paid more money for the game. And yeah, that's about it. Kind of moving into some of the story aspects of this game. The game is really built on the PvP focused environment, right? It's a game meant for online play and multiplayer. So on the PvE side, there's a couple of maps where you play as plants or you play as zombies, and you basically go through the map and complete a series of missions where you're fighting and you're defeating bosses and so on and so forth. But as far as a story goes, there's not too much happening in the Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville world, and that's kind of, I would assume, by design, because they don't expect too many people to be playing PvE. And so when it came to doing these story missions, I was really kind of just tuning them out in terms of if there was a story to be followed, more or less. It was essentially start the mission, go to this place, collect an item, and then come back to me for more or less these missions. But there are some other cool things happening that don't take place within the actual story itself, and that's things such as you can do kind of more tower defense style maps where you're supposed to defend a central point, and then there's little hubs on various choke points or areas around that you can build a series of various different plants that'll defend in different ways, like a pea shooter or a little like grenade guy that'll explode when people come by, or zombies, excuse me, so on and so forth. So there was a bit of a variety in things you could do in the PvE mode, and that also includes your ability to just kind of free roam the entire map that's been developed. And that kind of takes us into the navigation and the world design. So as I mentioned, there's a hub world, and it's very cool. It's like carnival-esque almost. There's neon lights and celebration things going on, and here you can buy, you can upgrade the skills for some of your zombies and plants. You can get cosmetic items through currency that you've made in game, which I felt was really hard to come by, more or less. After beating the entire kind of PvE focused side of this game, I barely had anything to spend still on a lot of those items. And there's also little mini games you can do. There's a little shooting gallery, or a little, like Simon Says, dancing mat, where you can do some little challenges. So that's pretty fun. And then from there, there's a little transportation car or whatnot to take you to a couple of different maps. One that's like a neighborhood, one that's like a little quarry, and one that's more like a little, like a forest of some kind, more or less. And the maps were pretty cool. I would say that when navigating them, the UI itself can be quite confusing in terms of you just kind of get dropped into the game without an introduction to, like, hey, here's how to change zombies or plants, if you want to choose a different class, or here is how you navigate the map and the things, and here's how you drop a waypoint on the map, and so on and so forth. A lot of these little things get passed over super quick, and so you'll spend a little portion of the time up front trying to figure out, okay, how exactly does this game work, and what are we doing, playing it in co-op. And one of the things that was hard from a navigation lens was, if I had dropped a waypoint somewhere, it wasn't necessarily going to show up on my co-op partner's screen in terms of helping them to navigate. So they essentially ended up having to follow me around everywhere, or pull up the map as a reference to see where I was. And so, you know, in some ways I felt like the UI experience and kind of navigating the world and finding the quests to do and so on and so forth wasn't always as crystal clear as it could have been. And so, not that that hinders the gaming experience, but is something that I would have liked to see a bit more of. On the gameplay side, when you're playing in PvE, essentially, since a lot of these missions comes down to fetch quests or fighting bosses with a lot of health, you end up in a situation where the classes and characters you're going to play as are like DPS, maxing type of characters, you know, your offensives, etc. Whereas the game has a variety of classes for attacking, for defending, for healing and support of characters. And if you play as those latter two, the defense and support, it's really just going to hinder your ability to move through the PvE parts of the game in an effective way. And so what this ends up doing is that since there's a lack of variety in the missions, you're going to choose maybe 2 or 3 different classes to play, and that'll be your whole experience with the game if you do not play the PvP side, where you really get to leverage more of these defense and support characters. And in PvP, where you can also be forced into situations where you have to play as those characters due to like elimination style matches and things like that. So from that lens, it was kind of disappointing, and equally so, the AI doesn't necessarily put up a huge challenge in a lot of ways. You have kind of 2 situations where you have weak zombies coming in that you crush, or plants, or there are so many coming at you at once that everything is super hectic on the screen. And that's because the way the maps are designed, they're very open. And what I mean by open is it's kind of got this tower defense focus on some of the missions as I described. However, one tower defense point may have, or one objective point may have 7, 8 avenues in which plants or zombies can kind of funnel into and attack. And so this creates a very hectic environment later on in those matches when there's a ton of enemies coming at once, because there's no effective way for 2 people to kind of defend so many points. And so it'll end up as a mosh pit of enemies and plants trying to fight each other. And, you know, to that lens, I found that it could be not necessarily frustrating, but hard to really skillfully manage defending some of these points, for instance. So gameplay overall could be easy, could be very hectic, and kind of a simple and straightforward mission structure and design to the world that was, I think, a little too open for what they were trying to accomplish here, but did enjoy it nonetheless. And it was really fun to play with a co-op partner. And so I think I got what I wanted to out of this game at its price point of paying like $10 for it. Nothing in the sound necessarily stood out to me. It was very kind of your cartoony, whimsical music and noises because you're playing as plants and you're playing as zombies. I did really like the sound of a lot of the weapons, in terms of if you had like the minigun, or you had one of the more like large offensive characters that had a huge like attack or something like that. I think the sound complemented it very well, and you did kind of feel like you were, say, a plant or cartoon zombie shooting one of these items. Like it had something very cartoony to the sound, but at the same time something punchy that made it really feel like, you know, it added to the experience of firing those weapons, so to speak. So, you know, that was cool. Nothing particular standing out in the sound world otherwise. And graphically, I think, you know, this game's a few years old now, but still looks really good. And a big part of it is because PopCap employed this more cartoon art style to the game, where everything looks like what you would imagine, and I keep saying this, we would imagine a plants and zombies fighting each other world to be like. And I think, you know, the original Plants vs. Zombies was in a 2D art style, if I remember correctly. And I think it's all been translated really well into this 3D environment. And so I really did enjoy how colorful, how saturated, and how creatively designed every character was in this game. And I think that PopCap did a really great job there. And so overall, you know, pretty short game. I probably spent less than 10 hours in total playing the PvE side. I dipped my toes into PvP a little bit, but multiplayer is not, you know, a big part of my play style, so I didn't buy it for that reason. At the price point and at what you get, I think it's a great deal and a fun game if you just want to spend a couple weekends playing it with somebody. It's graphically really nice. It sounds really good. There can be some issues with navigating and kind of fighting, you know, territorial defense missions and objectives. And the missions are a little samey with their kind of fetch quests focus. But I think overall, I did have a bit of fun with this game for what I invested into it. And so I think it's worth checking out if you haven't. If you have tried the game, would love to know what you think. Did you have a similar experience? And also, if you played the PvP, would love to hear kind of how PvP went for you, because I didn't spend too much time in it and would like to hear some opinions about whether I should go back and play it or not. And equally so, if you like the video, please like the video, and we'd love to have you around for more. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. So, well, until next time, great to see you again, and take care.